soccer fans, we hope you've got your cups filled with some tea because our cup of tea is ready to speak all things women's soccer with you. My name is Megan Warner and I'm joined by my co-hosts Harlie Ford and Katie Goodman. How are you both today?
Marvelous. I'm doing good, except for the fact that you guys are more responsible with your tea than I am. So,
I barely got my tea made today, and it's glazed lemon loaf, and it smells like birthday cake. It smells like birthday cake, and it tastes like heaven. It's fantastic. It's by Tazo
Megan,
Tea.
It's amazing. Megan, do you want to describe how these teas came to us?
Yeah.
Yes. So my boyfriend's sister works for a tea company who are like a part of Unilever. And so I spoke to her and I was like, we're our cup of tea. Wanna make teas for us? And so she very kindly sent us some different teas to try. So like Katie said, we got a lemon loaf one, which I'm very excited to try. And I'm glad you've experienced good things. Because Holly and I were like, this is interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
More classic, the pucker herbs tea, and it's 3 mints, so a classic, really. But
yeah.
And then there's also the apple cinnamon one, which I think is going to be both delicious and has the potential to maybe be turned into some baked good used as, I don't know, something.
Ooh,
so
yeah, something seasonal. That's
very,
like right on par with the season.
It's very in season, very fall.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
I'm very excited for it.
Next show, we all need to have the apple cinnamon one.
Yeah, agreed. 100%.
I will have tea next time.
Yeah,
I
we
vow.
can put our little
mix
on it. Yes. I dig it.
Well, without further ado, let's get started with the latest and greatest in WoSo. Harlie, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so tournament play opened up for 64 Division I NCAA teams this weekend. So there are so many top-level teams in this tournament. It's going to be absolutely crazy. Florida State's in there, Notre Dame's in there, Rutgers, Virginia, Tennessee, like all those big names, D1 schools. And they've all had like very admirable seasons. Like Rutgers went 10-0 in the Big Ten this season. So they're looking to make some waves, I think. So the first round of games takes place this weekend from November 12th to the 14th. And then the second and third rounds will be held November 19th and 21st. And so the quarterfinals will end up being played on November 26th or 27th, depending on the results of prior play. And then from there, we have the semifinal matches. There are two. One will be played at 7, one will be played at 9:30, and those are on December 3rd and will be broadcast live on ESPNU. And then finally, the big old championship match will be played on December 5th at 8 p.m., and that will also be broadcasted live on ESPNU. So it's going to be super, super exciting. The NCAA also made this really cool interactive bracket that you can use to predict where the teams are going to go and like keep up to date on broadcasting and what teams are playing when. So it's really, really exciting and helps you stay involved and connected to the tournament. So keep an eye out. The competition is going to be great. I'm looking forward to seeing what Rutgers is going to do. That should be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like we should definitely participate in this bracket and just kind of post it and follow along.
I'll text you the link.
Because that would be great. And also we have an Athenian who plays for the Rutgers.
There you
one
go.
of our Canadian ladies went over there, so it's incredible to see. I was looking at like stats and things the other day, and they're at number 4 in the nation right now. Is where they're ranked, and that's just like mind blowing. Like so cool. So glad she is a part of a really, really big school and organization. You know, it really makes all the difference. But something that's not going so hot after all, still kind of a little bit of a mix up here in the NWSL is just them trying to desperately rebuild themselves, reshape themselves. And it's never a great start for an expansion team to get slapped in the face with a fine before they even have a roster. So Angel City FC, a planned expansion team is set to play in 2022, was hit with a $40,000 fine for tampering with current Gotham FC midfielder Ali Long. The NWSL didn't provide a whole lot of details regarding the nature of the tampering, And if you read the article they posted, they didn't actually provide much information at all. I mean, probably the vaguest article in the history of man.
Yeah. As a press release, like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, Harlie said this to me, and I'm like, what does this even mean? Like, tampering? Like, did somebody, like, hide her soccer cleats in the locker room and, like, played a joke on her? Like, what's happening here? Like, this makes no sense. Yeah. But, thankfully, Alicia Rodriguez with SB Nation was able to provide a little bit more concrete information, such as the fact that this is not Angel City's first offense, announcing that they signed Christian Press before it was made official with the league. So it seems like this fine is more or less a stern message to Angel City that they need to get their organization in line, or it's not going to be an easy road for them, this season in the NWSL. However, the fine is split: $20,000 paid by the club and $20,000 forfeited from the allocation from their 2022 season. And I think that's about as serious as it can get for an NWSL team, especially considering salaries and the money that they have pumping into their organization. Like, that's a hefty fine. If you were to find someone like that in the NFL or NBA or even like
that's just
MLS, it's kind of like like this is maybe 1% of my salary or income, but this is huge.
Yeah, I sneeze out $40,000.
Right. Yeah. Oh no. Here, I'm gonna blow my nose into a golden napkin. Excuse
there you
me.
go.
Yeah. No. Like, this is not the same. This is a heavy hitter. And so that limits the roster for Angel City and will potentially prevent them from getting top-level players. So hopefully the club works to play by the book from here on out. Something tells me they probably will, because any more fines are going to probably capsize the entire organization. So,
yeah, it's not going to be great for them.
No. Yeah. Interesting fine, for sure. Mm-hmm. Oh, NWSL.
Yeah. Keep an eye on what tampering means. We'll find out eventually.
Right.
Yeah, we'll see if they release another very small press release.
It's so short. Oh boy.
But sticking in the NWSL, we did have some more exciting news coming out of there this week, as the newest addition to the NWSL announced their name, the San Diego Wave FC, with the FC actually standing for Football Club, which, I mean, excuse my accent, it's the Spanish way of saying football club. And so that actually makes them the first NWSL franchise to use the Spanish translation. And the club said that their name takes inspiration from San Diego's pristine and powerful coastline and diverse cultural heritage. So a great movement, a brilliant thing to add to the NWSL. And so when the name was released, San Diego Wave, I tweeted on Our Cup of Tea asking for people to get involved and take a poll on what they thought as the Wave. I feel like in America, it's really interesting the different names that like teams have. Like when I came over, I was like, oh, like I'm a Falcon. And then I transferred over, I'm like, oh, I'm a Warrior. Like it's really fun, like the different stuff that they have in America. So I was like, the Wave, like I wonder what people think. And so the results from our poll are in, and 66.7% of you said you love it, while 33.3% voted for it will grow on me. So interesting results there. Thank you to everybody who got involved in our poll. And personally, I think the Wave is a cool name. They already have an emoji, which I think is really cool, and that's always fun for fans to use. And the team have said that they chose the Wave as their symbol because it's a strong symbol, and like their club, it's an integral part of something bigger. Their players will be incredibly inspired to put on the jerseys and play for the fans of San Diego Wave FC. So they really released a very powerful message as they kind of came out and announced their name, and their crest and new location of where they'll be playing is going to be announced soon. So more exciting news to come.
Yeah, no.
I personally love that name. I feel like it's not like your basic tigers or lions or, or predatory animal. It's a wave, and water is so unsuspecting. You can go from nothing to a tidal wave like that. And like water in itself breaks down, alleyways and mountains over time, so I think it's true. Like a fantastic symbol of your club.
Yeah, I think it's really rad. I'm excited to see, maybe it's already existing, but what their fan club's going to be named. I wonder if they're gonna like really lean
Yeah.
into like that water theme.
They
Maybe like
so should.
we're the breakers or something. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We're the
Fun.
tidal to
So
their wave. We're
there you
the
go. There you
the
go.
cyclone to your something. I don't know. Yeah.
I know, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a good name. It's
Brainstorm.
got a lot of
Yeah.
potential to it, and I'm excited to see what they're gonna do in the league. It's gonna be cool.
yeah, really cool.
Yay.
Yeah, and
I
we're
love
still
it.
sticking in the NWSL though, as we keep going with the news. This is a big, heavy, hearty news section for all of you because WoSo, listen, 2 weeks of WoSo. It's a lot to cover.
Yeah.
So the Portland Thorns announced Karina LeBlanc as their new general manager, who she's taking on the role after Gavin Wilkinson left following the ongoing investigation into player safety and the sexual harassment accusations that have been investigated by the NWSL. So personally, I think this is a really exciting move for the Thorns. Not only is she like super qualified, very experienced, like she's been in the game forever. She is such a pioneer for WoSo, but she also used to play for the Thorns. So like she has like that tangible connection to them where like she just wants the best for the club. And LeBlanc is described as having the skills and qualities necessary to lead the Thorns to success. So I think that's something that's really nice and very rewarding for the players in that organization to have something and someone to lean on as support as they go forward and try to kick up some dust in NWSL. So, and I also have the utmost confidence that she is going to focus on protecting the players first, making sure that they are uplifting them and giving them the tools that they need to be successful and feel like they're safe in the environment that they just want to play the sport they love. So I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, and I love to see these moves happening at a top-down level approach, because it really is a top-down thing. And I feel like when you have someone in the right shoes at the very top, things like crazy coaches and sexual harassment cases are way less likely to happen. And if they do, they won't fly under the radar very long,
Right.
So yeah, I'm really, really excited to see, how they go and have a veteran like her, stepping in into those shoes. But moving out of American soccer now and into the European female leagues, tickets are now on sale for the Women's FA Cup final on December 5th, where Arsenal will take on Chelsea. So both teams won their semifinal games 3-0, with Chelsea knocking out Man City and Arsenal knocking out Brighton. So it's going to be a great game between the two attacking-minded teams with some key players in great form. I love seeing that there's a strong European league going now. And, whereas I felt like for a long time, there was so much emphasis left on American soccer and Americans dominating World Cup and things like that. So it's amazing to see, that such great things are happening over there in the European leagues for women. And I think it's going to really even out the playing field. And I think we're going to start seeing some weird stuff happen in the World Cup, and start getting Americans are going to be dethroned quite a few times.
Not so weird to me.
Yeah, not so weird to you, but as an American, I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, super exciting. The FA Cup is something that every English player loves because it just gives the opportunity for so many teams from so many different levels to compete and really find the team that has made it through this tournament. Each round has consistently played well. And yeah, these two teams are in great form. I'm just going to shout out Beth Mead because she is absolutely killing it right now. She is so in form. And if you have a chance to get to this game on December 5th, please go. I know that when I was younger, we almost always went to the FA Cup games. Lots of teams, like grassroots teams, will go as a whole collective team. All their players go and watch. And it's so fun when you're at the games, you see these big groups of girls all so excited about the game. And yeah, it's an incredible moment, incredible atmosphere at Wembley Stadium. So definitely, if you can go, highly recommend it.
I also love, I just want to add in real quick, that these female teams in the European leagues, they have the same name as the male teams in the European leagues. Whereas in the NWSL, it's like we have to create our own name, our own brand, and then we might get depending on, what city you're in, you might be able to piggyback off an MLS team or something like that. But it's almost like once the women's team was created in England, it was like an automatic, like, you're a part of us in our organization kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, on that, not to just like, circle back or anything, but the Portland Thorns are connected to the Portland Timbers. And what's interesting was like Gavin Wilkinson left his post with the Thorns, but he's still the GM for the Timbers. So like he's still like part of that circle, you know. And like one of the, I don't know who was talking about it. Someone I couldn't tell you who, but it was this question of like, what are your thoughts about that? Like he's still like kind of like here, and it's just like this question of like, well, he's with the men's organization. It's not really like our place to talk about what he's doing over there. And I was just like, I don't know.
That's a brush off if I've ever heard one.
Yeah.
It's interesting because at the same time, I do think that like with him being the GM for both teams, is he maybe spread too thin, and that role should be divided between two people. So then, it's like okay that he's going to then focus on the male side, because the role is too much, and obviously, a lot of things have been going on there. They probably do need more people
helping,
investing within the organization. But it is an interesting point that you bring, Katie, because from my experience of kind of seeing, like, I don't know, it's so interesting because Orlando City, for example, and Orlando Pride, two teams within Orlando, different names, but kind of connected because they're both the Orlando teams. And then where I'm from, it's like Watford FC and then like Watford FC Women, which used to be Watford Ladies, and then it changed to Watford FC Women. But I don't know, I feel like it's so hard for me to word this. I kind of feel like I like that these teams have their own full name. So like we are Orlando Pride.
I see. So it's like they're their own separate entity.
Yeah. Like we're Orlando City Women's.
I think it goes into identity.
Yeah.
See,
I wish that it could just be like, oh, like I'm going to watch Watford play. Like, oh, which Watford are you going to see? Obviously, so far in the future, and like that's just how it is. We've had this conversation so many times, but it is interesting, that kind of contrast of like, it is cool that we're a lot more integrated between the clubs, and again, that is kind of dependent on the club. Like it took a long time for Watford to be able to train at the men's facilities, but they do now, so that is a brilliant move. But it's kind of interesting.
I think I look at it from like a marketing perspective too. Like I feel like my marketing brain wants to think that if you have the same name and you're playing under the same brand, there's no mistake that you are both the highest level of men and the highest level of women's soccer in your city, or wherever these teams are located. Whereas I feel like maybe, people know all about Orlando City, but they don't really know much about Orlando Pride. Like what league is this? And are they the highest level league, or is that, whereas I feel like when you're lumped in with the same name, there might be a little bit of difference in identity, but it's almost like people already know, just because the men's team had kind of trailblazed the way, if you will, but, and I hate to say it like that, but you know what I'm saying? So that's where my mind goes, but I can definitely see both ways. I really can. Like being able to have your own identity and making a name for yourself and not having to depend on like a men's club to make that name for you. So.
Yeah, I think at that point, if you're thinking about like keeping the same name, then at least be like, all right, this is Watford men, Watford women, it's just like, boom.
Right. Just leave it at that. Yeah.
There you go.
Yes.
Solution.
This discussion kind of reminded me of another chat I was having with somebody the other day, and I was talking to them about how I played in the UWS this summer, and then they were like, they were getting confused basically between like UWS and like NWSL, and then it reminds me of when Jonathan received an email about the US women's national team, because that being like shortened to letters looks really similar to UWS, and I'm like, we've got that. Like she was like, there's only so many ways that you can say like women's soccer, I guess, and so these leagues will have such similar names that I feel like people get confused with that as well.
Yeah, and that's interesting because now they're trying to do like USLW, I think to kind of keep. So I wouldn't be surprised if they like if NWSL does for some reason happen to collapse or disintegrate. $10 says it's going to be MLSW, Major League Soccer Women.
Yeah, I don't like
I
that.
would bet. I know,
I don't like
I
it.
know, but
Pass.
but it's true. Like there's NWSL, there's WPSL, there's UWS, there's I know another one that I don't quite remember, but yeah. So I mean, it is hard to keep track of all the acronyms.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
But moving into our final news item for today, which is probably the one that everybody has heard about because it's pretty crazy. So Paris Saint-Germain midfielder Aminito Diallo was arrested in an investigation into allegations of assault last week on teammate Kira Hamraoui. Oh my gosh, French names, very hard. Hamraoui. I think I've got it. That's a hard name. Anyway, so PSG announced in a statement that Diallo was taken into police custody as part of an investigation following an assault on November 4th against the club's players. So they didn't name the player, they stated players.
Yeah.
And then the club since also made a statement to say that all the necessary means have been taken to guarantee the health, well-being, and safety of its players, which I think is a key part of the story that often, we just focus on, like, what's the drama, like, what's going on, but actually I'm really glad that they came out and said that, and I think that's an important part to say within this news piece. So essentially, a French sports newspaper, L'Equipe, was the first to report that the arrest was actually made in connection with a violent attack on Amraoui. And so Amraoui is another PSG midfielder, and this attack occurred on Thursday when PSG had a team dinner, and Amraoui drove with Diallo, and then there was reports that two masked men pulled Amraoui out of the car and hit her in the legs with an iron bar. And so Amraoui suffered injuries to her legs and arms within the attack and was actually hospitalized later that evening. And the day before, it was either the day before or 2 days before, just very in close proximity, before the arrest, Diallo started in PSG's midfield in their Champions League game because Amraoui was out injured. So many are speculating and believe that this attack was all stemmed to Diallo wanting to get more playing time. Now, Diallo has since been released without charges, but the investigation is ongoing. So a really, really crazy, intricate story that I could not believe when I read it. I was like, is this like a new Netflix show? Like, is this real? Because it's just so unfathomable that this sort of thing is happening. But yeah, I mean, thoughts, comments, guys?
It's crazy to think about, like, someone doing that just to get a starting position. But I mean, it's kind of like the facts aren't looking good for her. I mean, she was driving the car. She didn't get hit. Somehow only her teammate got hit and beat to hell. So like what else can you do?
Position.
They played the same position. And I think I saw in an article somewhere that they arrested her on the case of seeing a message somewhere. I think they saw a message or something somewhere. And so I think that's why they were like, okay, based on these facts and evidence, like, I think that's why they took her in and arrested her. But I mean, it's also kind of crazy, that it happened after the fact. It happened after the fact that she was able to play in the game and do all of this stuff, and then they arrested her. Like, why did it take so long to figure this out? So, I don't know. It's crazy, but I mean, there are crazy people out there who do these things. But this is like next level drama that I was not expecting from an attack of a woman on woman. You know what I'm saying? Like, usually the stuff you hear about in the news is like, oh, like there's sexual assault going on, men treating women like crap, or, all these things happening in the NWSL. And then you turn over and look at this, and it's just like, it comes from all angles,
Right.
And so, and it's, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, some people aren't driven to like those crazy extremes just because of the culture that's cultivated within the club too. You know, like, all right, go do everything you can, do whatever you need, like to be, you know, first on the team. But like, that's just crazy. I don't know. I don't know what else to say other than that's just crazy. Like, I'm literally stumped on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it is in a lot. Sorry, I am taking. Everyone should know this at this point. I take care of dogs. This dog really wants to be in our cup of tea, so I'm so sorry about the barking in the background. I've been trying to appease him. I don't have any peanut butter on hand, otherwise it'd be not an issue. But it's kind of like bleeds into like our big main topic of what we want to talk about, and that's how women's soccer is covered in mainstream media. And so when we talk about this story, like it's insane and dramatic and intense. Like, of course that's going to make headlines. Like, that stuff doesn't happen. The parallel that I see for it is, I don't know if you know the story of Tanya Harding, but like with the US figure skating competitions, essentially her husband made sure that she was going to be able to compete in that competition in 1994. Like, that was like almost 20 years ago. Over 20 years ago. So that, like, that's a moment that you think about is just like such a major pop culture movement. Like, there's been numerous movies made about Tanya Harding and like the things that happen there. So that's like, of course, as a news story that people are going to like talk about and are drawn to and want to discuss. But I guess like my issue with what occurred, and like, I mean, when we talk about these stories, is that it seems like that is the only kind of story that mainstream media wants to cover for women's soccer. Like,
yeah, I mean, I introduced it with, this is the story you've probably all heard about. And you probably haven't heard about the FA Cup final.
Right.
You might not have even heard about the NWSL news.
Right.
You will have heard about this one, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I think like the issue here is like, you know, how do we get to take women's soccer seriously? So, and like one thing that, you know, we talk about on the show a lot is like ESPN in specific, and like how frustrating their news coverage is, because you'll go on there and they'll report anything in the entire world regarding men's soccer, from compelling rivalry stories to potential player transfers. And then even one article is about how Ronaldo missed a header. Like,
right. Or like the most lackluster goal.
There you go.
The most basic lackluster goal is being spotlighted on their Instagram, when like these women are like executing masterful goals. You know, like it's just, or like the buildup and the play development, how it's so different. Like, yeah, I don't know. It drives me crazy too, because that's the only thing that I've seen on ESPN FC. And so the second I saw that article, I reshared it and I added them. I'm like, I'm going to at you now, because you know, at ESPN FC, I'm over it. Like, I'm so over like them. Like, you know, the sad part is like, I don't even think that they claim to be a fair and equitable media source. Like, I don't even think that's in their language anywhere. Like, because they're so male dominated. I think they know damn well that their ratings come from men's sports. And because like, if you look at their media across the board, maybe their website has a little bit more, a smidgen more about women's sports. If you look at NFL, NBA, there is an article written every couple of hours about this. Well, this person had the most points in career history, and this person had the most points here, and this person did this, and what are we going to do about this person's injury and this thing the next day? And like, nobody cares about that when it comes to women's sports. They just don't get the same coverage. And it's I think it's partly because they need to hire more people who do care and who do want to pump out those articles and who do want to fight for that exposure on the socials and the social channels. I understand, like, maybe if something isn't getting good ratings because people aren't watching games on TV, okay, well, maybe they're not watching those games because they haven't been promoted on your main socials. Maybe they don't even know these games are happening because you haven't promoted them like you have this NBA game or that NBA game. You know, so like, it's one of those things, like, the only thing that's going to really change that is them hiring people internally who care enough about women's sports to fight for them to get more coverage.
Right.
And pumping out content about them. I mean, there's endless amounts of content that we can pump out, but we need help, and we need help in the larger platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so I went off.
Pump, like, I feel like every time the big major news outlets cover women's soccer is when there's a negative story that brings about a lot of drama, because
right.
people love to read about these like dramatic stories and things.
And it makes sense. It does.
Yeah. But then if you talk to the average person who maybe just has like the ESPN app or like whatever, like they have a news coverage that they just watch maybe 15 minutes while their food is cooking or whatever, like that small time, they only have seen negative things about women's soccer. So how are we supposed to grow this game and encourage like young players to participate when the people watching the news stories are most likely just seeing how bad it is? When it's such a false representation of the women's game. There are so many incredible things that we speak about on the show. Like, we try to give justification to newsworthy stories that we believe people should be hearing about, and we try to like promote them on Twitter and whatever. But you know, we only have 500 odd followers. When you look at the likes of the ESPN Instagram accounts, they have so many followers who only get to hear about the negative things about women's soccer, which is, it's just really sad. Like, they're missing so much.
Oh, yeah, and then you wonder why, like, people fail to take the sport seriously, and it's just like, well, it's a soap opera more than anything, it seems like. It's just like, no, there's actual athleticism being, you know, showcased on that field, and it's just, I don't understand why it's such a gosh darn struggle to get people to understand that. I don't know.
You know who I really do like, though, is The Gist. They're an incredible publication, both, like, just, you know, it's all online mostly, and they have a podcast as well. And I think that is the most equal coverage I've seen in a while. And they tend to lean towards women's sports, but what they do is they also will share a lot of mainstream sports events that are, you know, and they kind of break it down in a way that's easier to understand if you're not seriously following all the leagues. And so I love that they are creating this pathway to inclusivity for women who aren't just playing sports, but who are interested in sports too, you know? So it's kind of creating this environment where, hey, you don't have to know every statistic and you don't have to know all these things. Like, here, we're just going to break down the basics, and like, this is just what's going on. And so I love stuff like that. And I love to see them just, I don't know, they really shout women's empowerment from the rooftops.
Yeah, I think you've just like raised a really interesting point about how, like, in men's sports, the percentage of viewers who actually played at like a competitive level is probably quite low. Like, a lot of people just enjoy the sport because they watch it, and like they don't necessarily have that playing experience. When it comes to women's soccer, a lot of the people attending these events and like supporting it and all that thing,
are players themselves.
Are players themselves, exactly. Like,
or looking to play.
To branch out and just be like, oh, I just like the sport. Like, I just want to follow the sport. And I remember there was a girl in my high school who was probably the person that I could have the women's soccer discussions with. Like, she loved watching the England national team and stuff, but she didn't really play, like only in PE. Didn't really get to kick a ball about. And so it's like, there are people out there who just want to support the team, but if the news is so negative and limited, people aren't encouraged to, like they are with the mainstream sports. Like, everybody wants to have a fantasy team. They might not have ever played the sport, but they love that kind of involvement within it. Where is that kind of thing for the women's game?
Yeah.
Right.
So
I would love.
Oh, sorry, Katie.
I was just gonna say I would love to see a mainstream sports outlet, media outlet dedicated primarily to women. You know.
Yeah, it would be incredible. But this is one thing that we were talking about before we started recording today, is that CBS actually, in the midst of all the many multitudes of outlets that are possible, they actually do a really, really good job about reporting on women's soccer. Like, when we're talking about like how we're reporting stories, it's not like saying exclude the negative stories. Like, it's really important that you talk about what happened at PSG. Like, that is bonkers stuff. Like, if you don't talk about that, it almost like encourages it to continue, because it's just like, no one's going to pay attention to it. Like, it's,
getting away with murder.
With the NWSL story, it's like they need attention in order to initiate change.
Right. But there also has to be a balance where, it's not just completely saturated in the harrowing stories of what women are enduring. Like, talking about Carly Lloyd's retirement, or talking about the Portland Thorns general manager, talking about what girls are doing in the NCAA or how they're coming out of the UWS. Like, I mean, I don't think we'll ever see, like, within like the next year or so, UWS on like a CNN channel or whatever, but you never know. But the point is, we may. I would love to see it. We're championing so hard for them. I want to see it. But
I think it's only a matter of time. Things are starting to move in the right direction slowly but surely. Like, we're getting this slow momentum going. So maybe 10 years, I think that'll be commonplace.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think CBS is doing the right thing, because they've partnered into a 3-year media deal with the NWSL, making sure that they're uplifting those stories, giving them, like, for the longest time, you didn't even know where you were going to watch a match. It was like, okay, it's on Lifetime. It's on YouTube, maybe. I don't know. Like, you're playing pro soccer and you don't know where to, like, watch it. That's crazy to me. So, just a quick shout out to, like, what they're doing. That's really nice. And I would love to see, like, more media outlets, like, leaning onto, like, that style of coverage, where it's just not, like, out of a contractual obligation, but actual interest in the sport.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like we said, it's a good start. It's a good start.
Yeah.
All we can ask for.
Yeah. Big shout out to CBS.
Yeah. Yo, CBS. Sponsor us.
And the gist. Good shout out to the gist.
Women's soccer. You can add this into your daily programming if you would like.
Be a good time. We're good. We're
a
good
good
spot.
All things WoSo. Yeah.
Put us on daytime television.
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
Well, I hope that everybody has enjoyed catching up on the latest and the actual greatest. There's some really great things happening in women's soccer right now. So thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the show. And as always, special shout out to Jonathan Ward for helping us along with the UWS and the UWS2, so we can bring this #1 live show dedicated to women's soccer to your screens. And if you haven't already, subscribe down below, give us a follow on Twitter, follow your host individually, and get involved with us. We put out polls, we put out tweets, and we love to hear your feedback. So thank you for all your continued support.
Thanks, guys.